So, this is a quick video just to take you through some of the basics of scientific posters. So, a few things to know about posters. They should be visually attractive. They're usually something that you would do, or that certainly academics would do at a conference. They're often up on the walls or boards around the room. People mill around and they kind of pick out the ones that they want to talk to people about. So they need to be reasonably eye-catching. They should be concise. You'll have a limited amount of space that you need to get something which might be a whole study on, so you need to think very carefully about the most important information. They need to be clear, so you want people to be able to see certainly some detail on them from a fair way away, so they kind of want to come and have a look at it. And nevertheless though, they also need to be academic and formal, so they still need to follow some of the kind of requirements that some of your other reports or essays also follow as well, in terms of them being written in good, clear English, grammatically correct, and also sometimes following some of the conventions of how you title and lay out some of the information as well. So this is an example of a decent layout. So you can see we've got the title clearly at the start. It follows a similar kind of pattern that your report might do, so your lab reports or something like that. So we still have an abstract, there's an introduction, you might have a table, or you might also have a materials or methods section. You've still got results and conclusions. There's figures in there as well, and they're often the best way to get information across clearly and quickly and make it look visually attractive as well. And you'll notice at the bottom there's also references. So even though this is a poster, you still need those references, still doing Harvard APA referencing system as well. So a few things to think about. So typing and colour as well. So it's nice to have a colour background, but I would say that it needs to be a muted one, so not something that's too strong, something where you still got a decent amount of contrast between the typed word and the background. But that said, it's sometimes nicer than a white background because it's more eye-catching. Sometimes it's a bit easier to read as well. Also making sure that you don't over-clutter your poster. So leave some clear space. Also thinking in terms of making sure that things follow a kind of logical progression. So if I just briefly go back to this layout, people tend to read from left to right and top to bottom. So that's why we've got the title at the top, then abstract, introduction, and then you go to the other side to read the results and conclusions, so it follows a logical order. And you can see here there's still clear space. Also use a sans serif font. It basically means use a clear font that doesn't have too many fancy bits on it. So anything that looks like handwriting or old-fashioned type can be quite difficult to read. So sticking to things like Calibri or Arial, something like that. Obviously making things obvious, so you know your big title, you might want it to be 90 point, section headings maybe 32 to 36, main body 22 to 28, so fairly big type as well, which also underlines why you need to be quite concise in what you're writing. Also we'd recommend either 1.5 to double line spacing. So you're leaving a decent amount of space in between the lines as well, which again makes it much easier to read on a poster. A few little bits about labelling as well. So you should definitely have figures on a poster. You don't want it all to be written text. You need something eye-catching and interesting to look at. So you may have figures, graphs, photographs, tables of information. They all need to be labelled as well, and they all need to do something too. So a figure, legend as it says here, will go at the foot of the image. But also you have that figure legend in there saying figure 1, so you can refer to it in the text. So they should be in there for a reason, and they should be there to help illustrate something that you're actually saying. So you don't want little bits of clip art or photographs in there for the sake of it that don't do anything. They should be related to what you're saying. Same with something like a table. So if you have got a list of results you want to give, putting it in a table may be better. They need to be labelled at the top, as this one is. And everything needs a title, as this does as well. So, probably the best way of kind of illustrating this is to show you a few things. So this, for example, is an example of a not very good poster. So you can see that the two kind of pictures there, the two figures, don't have any title. they don't have any legend. So I'm not entirely convinced that the person who's put them in is actually going to speak about them in the actual text. The title's not very clear because they've used kind of a weird word art. So if you were standing far away from it, you might maybe be able to make out Gobi Desert, but maybe not the first couple of words. It's got quite a distracting border around it. It's got a very dark background, and then the actual text is on different colours, which is a bit confusing, and also it means that sometimes the contrast isn't very good, particularly in the methods section and the results section where the background's quite dark. Also, things aren't really quite in order. So you've got the abstract, but then you've got a figure in the way. You've got the introduction, but for some reason it's followed by the references. And then you've got the methods and results, but the method's really big and the results are really small. And then you've got the discussion and conclusions kind of shoved towards the end. So it'd be much better to have it kind of more in columns, justified with each other, so you can make out what section's doing what. That's in comparison to this one, which is much better. It's not perfect, it could maybe be a bit more interesting, but it's a lot clearer. So we've got a fairly muted background, a surround which isn't too distracting. The title's clear, it could maybe be a bit clearer, it could maybe be a bit bolder. But you can see that everything's justified. We've got the abstract, the introduction, the method, so it follows a logical path. We've got some figures in the middle which are labelled and have titles, so we'll assume they're going to talk about it in the text. And then we've got results, discussion and conclusions, and references at the end. So it follows a kind of logical path. You can follow it through from left to right and top to bottom. So things to check about your posters: is the format clear? Does it follow a logical path? Are your diagrams and figures and graphs reasonably clear? Are they titled? Can you see at least some detail on them from far away so they're attractive? Is the text clear? Have you used a reasonably sized font? So is the main body at least 22 point? Have you left at least 1.5 to double line spacing? And you yourself as well, if you put that up on the wall and step away from it, is it eye-catching? Is it something you will make you think, right, I want to go and read that further as well? Further help as well, if you want some help on technically how to do posters, if you go on the Skills for Learning website and look at the workshops tab and look at digital skills, our digital skills team do run sessions on how to do poster presentations in PowerPoint and set them out. So that's a really useful thing to go and attend. Okay, and this is the information about our Skills for Learning website. There's also another guide in there with more detail on poster presentations and all sorts of other scientific writing as well. And also other ways that you can find us, so blog and Twitter.